Good morning, folks. Hope you're all doing well. The final instalment now looking at under 23 players. And like I said, the final segment is the forwards. The criteria, the last 40, they must have played 75% of the games or more. And for the budget for the forwards, it's going to be slightly higher of £20. Now, my first selection is August Aidin. There is a risk with him because he was playing at Alanspor last season. He had a terrific season, 20 odd contribution or goal contributions in 35 games. However, he has now turned or signed for Fenerbahce. So there's no guarantees he's going to be a regular starter. But as you can see, his scores last season were outstanding. Lots of dark green scores for his price of around £7.50. If he does become a regular starter at Fenerbahce, it could be an absolute tremendous signing, value for money. So definitely one to keep an eye out for, whether you want to put him on a short list to see whether he does start and see how he goes. But he's definitely one to keep an eye out for. He's got one more year of under 23 eligibility. Second selection is Dylan Bakwa, who plays for Strasbourg in Ligue 1 in France. Strasbourg last season struggled. I think they finished about 6th or 7th from bottom. If you look at his scores, they're decent. Obviously, for a striker who is playing in a struggling side. His limited card is around about 15 quid. And if he rediscovers his end of season form at the beginning of the season, then I think his price will go up because he finished almost on fire, scoring or assisting in most of the last few games. He's eligible for under 23s until 2027, so he's got 3 more seasons. So this guy could be good value for money too. It all really depends on how well Strasbourg does this season. Next selection is PK Fernandez. He was at Racing Santander. No, I'm lying. Actually, I'm not lying. He was at Racing in La Liga 2 last season. I believe he finished the top goal scorer. He's now just signed for Sevilla, so there's no guarantees that he's going to start. But you can see from his scores last season, outstanding, lots of green scores. And I did see this guy play once or twice, and I like my strikers on so rare not to be like a Eddie Nketiah type of striker who just scores goals and doesn't really get involved. He plays in more of a number 10 role, so he's more involved in the setting up chances as well as scoring them. He looks a very good prospect from what I've seen of him. Obviously risks because he's not going to, in my opinion, he's not just going to walk into that Sevilla side. However, for 6.5 quid, I think I've seen him. He's definitely one to look out for, especially if you consider he's still got 3 more years of under 23 eligibility. So definitely one to keep an eye out for, in my opinion. Another selection is Igor Matanovic. Again, a slight risk because he was on loan at Karlsruhe or whatever they're called in the Bundesliga 2 last season. Scored and assisted very regularly, and that reflects in his scores. However, I'm not sure what is happening to him this season. I've tried to get as much information as I possibly can. It looks like he could be staying at Frankfurt and not going out on loan. If that's the case, I don't believe he's going to start. So again, it's another one to keep an eye out for. Put on your short list if he's the sort of character you're looking for, and see what happens in the early stages of the season. But for under a tenner, bear in mind he's still got 3 more years of under 23 eligibility. He could be a good signing. Next on the list is Dan Rotz, who's at FC20 in the Eredivisie. Like I've pointed out before, what I like about these sort of players, he plays more on the wing. So as well as scoring, he will contribute, create big chances, which obviously contribute to their all-round score on the scoring matrix. You can see from his scores last season, there are lots of dark green scores, which is obviously what you're looking for. And for his price, which is about 15, 16 quid, I think he's one to consider. 20 at a half decent side. They're by no means one of the strongest sides in the Eredivisie, but they're a mid-table, comfortable side. And looking at his scores last season, if he performs again of that standard, then if anyone signs him, then I don't think you can go far wrong with that. Next on the selection list is Callum Hudson-Odoi, the ex-Chelsea player now at Forest. Plays more of a winger than a striker, which again for me is a benefit. You can see from his scores last season, he's capable of producing some really good dark green scores. Obviously, Forest are going to be bottom half, or in my opinion, they'll be bottom half again. They'll struggle in the Premier League, but against the weaker teams, then he's capable, like I said, of scoring really, really well. Only one more year of under 23 eligibility, but for 8 quid, bearing in mind you could potentially use him in the Premier League team as well, then I think there's a lot going for Callum Hudson-Odoi personally. The only thing I would note about him is that it has been a bit of transfer speculation with Tottenham, etc. I don't see that happening. But just bear in mind that, because if he does go to a better club, then I'm not convinced he will be a regular starter, which he is, in my opinion, at Forest. Next on my list is Mikel Ange Balakwisha. I believe that's how you pronounce it. He's currently at Antwerp in Belgium. However, there are very, very strong links with Celtic in the SPL. So please bear that in mind. Again, this character is more of a winger than what I would class as like a number 9 striker. So again, better in terms of so rare scoring. And I genuinely believe if he went to Celtic, he would score better because the SPL is one of the weakest leagues, in my opinion, in the whole league structure in Europe. Take away Rangers and Celtic, it's pathetic, the league, in all honesty. So if he does go there, I think he will rip it up there, especially if he's a regular starter. I think these scores would improve even more. So for the price he is at the moment, I think I've seen a card for about 10, 11 quid. He could potentially be a very, very good buy. The next guy on the list, he's just completed a move to Bologna as I'm recording this video, which is the 22nd of July. I think he's gone for 15 million quid. You can see from his scores last season playing for Toulouse, he was banging them in and regularly hitting dark green scores. Whether he's to do that at Bologna is another matter. So that obviously got to come into your consideration before purchasing him. I think his floor price is around 11 quid. For me personally, he would be one that I would keep on my shortlist and see how he gets on. Whether he starts for Bologna first and foremost, which I think he will do. But obviously it's a totally different league and how quickly he's going to settle and start banging him in. But definitely one to consider. Next on the list, another guy who's currently playing in Belgium, Kevin Denke for Cercle Bruges. Again, last season, lots of dark green scores. Very good goal scoring in the Belgium league. And that is massive. Well, I've seen loads and loads of links with him going ranging from Tottenham to Roma, etc. But as I'm recording this, as far as I'm aware, he's still at Cercle Bruges and there's no imminent transfer as yet. Their season starts next weekend, so it'll be interesting to see if he does start for them. Floor price under a tenner. Only one more year of under 23 eligibility, but if he does stay at Bruges for his price, I think he could be a real bargain, especially if he carries on his scoring record from last season onto this season. So again, another one to consider. in my opinion. Next guy on the list is Brennan Johnson. He's on my list mainly because he's Welsh, if I'm being honest, which obviously gives him more utility as well for the international weekends and stuff like that. Possibly he could have a breakout season at Tottenham next season. I'm not 100% convinced. Bags of pace, but a bit like Dan James, a bit of a headless chicken. But as you can see from his scores last season, very, very decent. Personally, I think there's better options out there. But again, potentially you could use him in the Premier League team as if not the under 23. So definitely one to consider. My next selection, another cheap option, is Simon Adingra at Brighton. His scores aren't fantastic from last season by any stretch, but as you can see when he was at USG in Belgium, which is obviously a far better or easier league than the Premier League, he was posting some really good scores. And as you can see, now he's in the Premiership, those scores have deteriorated quite dramatically. However, I've seen Brighton play a few times last season. I like this player on the eye. I'm not saying he's a great scorer on So Rare because that would suggest that he isn't. Um, but again, he's more of a winger type sort of guy rather than a number nine. So he will create chances as well as potentially scored in them. And for six, I think £5, I think again, he'll give you the option to play Premier League as well as if he doesn't make it under 23 team. He's got 2 more seasons of under 23 eligibility. And for the price, I think he's one to consider because I think Brighton could have a decent season again next season. And if they do, this man is going to play a big part, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to keep the trend and follow what I've done on every video I've made so far with under 23s. I'm going to finish with a few Leeds boys that I think people should consider. The first one, Jorginho Rutter. He's Leeds' record signing of all time. I think they paid 30 odd million off Hoffenheim, which in my opinion was far too much because he's not as good as that transfer fee would suggest. However, playing in the Championship, you can see his scores last season. For a guy who only managed to score 7 goals because he couldn't score in a brothel, in my opinion, he creates huge chances. He plays. Last season, he played in, I don't know what role you would say. He was almost dropping into midfield. He was playing a number 10 role, basically. In my opinion, he's more suited to a wing, playing out on the wing, which I think he will this season. But he's going to be Leeds' main man again this season. There's no chance of him being sold. Leeds rejected a few bids off him. If anyone's going to be sold from Leeds, I think it'll be Somerville. So this guy is going to play a huge part in Leeds' promotion bid this season. For me, like I keep saying, Leeds are going to be one of the not or one of, if not the most dominant side in the Championship. They have to get promoted this season. And this guy for £14, under 23 until 2026, so 2 more seasons. I think he is one of the best under 23 forwards, value for money wise, on the platform. So if he stays fit, I think these scores are going to improve from last season. And hopefully he will have done some training in the summer on actually shooting and finishing. So definitely one to keep an eye out for, guys. Now my last selection is Mateo Joseph. In my opinion, Leeds played their first pre-season on Friday. Bamford wasn't fit or whatever, but I believe this man is going to start ahead of Bamford at the very beginning of the season. If he starts banging him in, then I don't think Bamford gets back in the side. This guy should have played more last season, in my opinion, because Bamford isn't the answer. He misses far too many chances. This guy is lethal in front of goal, far better goal scorer, and that's why I think he will become Leeds' number one so-called number 9 striker, if you like. I think his limited card is about 12 quid. He's under 23 for another 4 seasons. He's only 20 years of age. And I'm really excited for him this season. Like I said, Bamford's too injury prone. You can't count on him. He's fucking useless, in all honesty. This guy could have the season of his life, in my opinion, because, like I said, I think Leeds going forward next season are going to absolutely dominate sides. They're going to create loads and loads of chances. And where Bamford was missing them last season, this guy won't miss. He certainly won't miss as many as Bamford. So if this guy stays fit, I'm going to go on record early at the beginning of the season and put my neck on the line. I believe Joseph will score 20 league goals this season. If he does that, his price of his cards will go a lot. They'll be worth a lot more than they are now. So, guys, there's my Leeds United inside sort of knowledge, if you like. Rutter and Joseph for under 23s for under 20 quid. I think they're potentially two of the best under 23 players on the platform. But please bear in mind, I'm a massive Leeds United fan and I am massively biased. All goes well. Hopefully, if any of you buy them and they do well, then you make some good money out of it and win some decent prizes. But all the best, guys. Thanks very much for watching. And you do with your side, the luck for the new coming season. And the hope is one game week, all the stars align, and your 5 players you selected have a fucking fantastic game week and you smash it. So, like I said, guys, thanks for watching. See you very soon. Cheers.